Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know it's been like what, 5 years since I posted, but I'm back and hopefully we'll be consistent. Anyway, so this video is for people who are trying to apply to schools in the US, and even though it's targeting people who are applying for undergraduate programs, the tips that I'm going to give you apply for graduate programs, PhD programs, online programs, anything. So stay tuned, and if you have any questions or tips or anything else that you want to hear from me, comment below. And yeah. Okay guys, let's get down to this. So understand that I cannot memorize all of these things, and I'm going to be using my phone once in a while to refer to certain things. So like I said, this video is supposed to help you understand why the admissions process to US universities is so competitive and how you as a student can stand out. So here's an interesting statistic I have for you. For the class of 2019, for the folks who admitted to Harvard, there were 26,000 applications, and a majority of these people had perfect GPA scores, they had perfect ACT scores, and Harvard only has 1,700 places for you. So the question is, how are you going to stand out, and how are you going to ensure that as an international student, by the way, which is much more competitive than for domestic US students. Okay, so how are you going to stand out? So the first thing that you need to understand is, as an international student, so personally I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, and I went through the 844 system, which is now the CBC system, and unfortunately these US schools mostly recognize AP classes, which are usually offered, you know, in these international schools, and also IB courses. So the first thing that you need to know is that AP courses and IB courses, basically if you go to an international school, fortunately these US schools mostly recognize AP classes, which are usually offered, you know, in these international schools, and also IB courses. So the first thing that you need to know is that AP courses and IB courses, basically if you go to an international school, because those academic programs are run by internationally recognized institutions, you're likely to stand out more, especially if you have good grades. So what do you do if you are in the 844 CBC system? How do you make sure you stand out academically? So let's get into it. The very first thing you need to know is, obviously you need to be killing your grades. Your transcript right from Form 1 to Form 4, or your first year of high school to your last, has to be as clean as possible, because they're going to ask you to submit what you call a grade point average, a GPA. So if you have really good grades, then you're likely to stand out compared to the kids who are applying from these internationally recognized schools. So when you're ready to apply, if you're in your third year or in your fourth year of high school, the first thing that you need to do is calculate your GPA. When you're ready to apply, it's really important that you take all of your grades from your first year of high school to the last year of high school and put them in the website. Like I said, I'm going to link the website link in my, damn, so many words. Anyway, it's gonna be in the comment section, and you can put in all of your grades, the A's, the B's, the C's, all of them, and then it's going to generate what you call a grade point average, and you'll know how you stand, how you compare to the applicants to the schools that you're aiming for. And schools generally put in their website the range that they accept. Like for example, for Harvard, it's gonna be like 4.0 to 2.9. Okay, these guys are extremely competitive, and then, you know, it goes downwards that way. So make sure you calculate your GPA when you're ready to apply. So another key thing that I wanted to highlight is being strategic. I personally worked for an international educational consulting company in the US, and was serving parents and kids, you know, all the way in China, in India, and mostly in North America. And I was genuinely shocked by how these parents and students came in with guns blazing. These kids were being prepared for Harvard and Yale and all of these competitive programs right from 8th grade. That's like, you know, class 8, even before high school. So the strategy that I want to highlight here is being strategic and starting early. And I will expound on what starting early means in later videos. But the whole point is, if you're thinking of applying for these competitive programs and getting a scholarship, you need to make sure that you're killing the game right from Form 1. And by killing the game, what do I mean? So I now want to talk about what happens in the admissions office and the metrics that they use to assess your candidacy for these competitive programs. So now let's, jump into the metrics that are used by the admissions committee members. So let's get started with metric 1. All right, so metric 1 is your high school curriculum. So basically, when you apply to a school, the school is already probably familiar with your school. So for example, for Kenyan students, schools like Alliance, Precious Blood, where else? Kenya High. So the schools that have alumni who have already applied, gotten in and been successful, they're fairly familiar with them. And so that means that they know what your school offers academically and in terms of resources and, just in terms of extracurriculars. So it's really important that, number one, you're making the most of your school's resources, that you're making the most of the extracurriculars, and number 3, that you're taking the most interesting or challenging courses. And for you to stand out, you also have to go beyond that. So typically when I'm working with students and parents, I usually encourage them to take advanced placement courses online or just take free courses on edX, etc. And I'm going to link those websites in the comment section below so that you can see what college intro classes you can take. And the whole point of this is to show the admissions committee, like, hell yeah, if you admit me, I'm gonna be like actual P and do well, etc. They want to know that you will handle the academic rigor, because that shit is hard. Oops, language. It's hard AF, and you have to show them that you're really good at your language again, that you're really good at what you do. Say for example, you're thinking of doing biomedical sciences. If you go onto edX and you take an intro bio class or physics class or calculus class, say if you're in engineering, basically challenging yourself academically like that, going beyond what your school offers, is going to help you stand out. So that's the first thing. Remember, the school you're applying to knows a little bit about the school that you're applying from, and they want to see that you're maximizing on what you got from your high school and even going beyond that. Okay, so the second metric that I get so many questions about is extracurricular activities. Generally means what are the activities that you're doing outside your curriculum, outside your academic experiences, outside your homework, outside tests and everything. Are you doing interesting, challenging stuff that is going to make your campus life really interesting? So the question that they have is, when this student gets admitted to our school, what are they going to be doing outside their classes? When I think about my students who have done well, typically they've been playing the piano for years, doing photography, videography, painting, soccer, it could be sports, it could be anything, but the whole point is to develop certain skills from it. And the key skill there is leadership, right? Say for example, if you want to do MUN and you end up becoming one of those, is it a delegate or an ambassador? I don't know. Whoever has been in MUN, comment below so you can remind me. But just making sure that you're doing the most, attending conferences, winning medals, blah, blah, blah. But the two things to remember is, number one, make sure it's aligned with what you plan on doing on campus when you do get in. So, right, having that sort of, look into the future sense. And then number two, that you have been doing it for a long time, because they want to see that you've developed your skills and you've been committed to this thing for a long period of time. So those are the two things. And you'll have to write about these things in your essays. So make sure that they're compelling and make sure that they're believable. All right, we're done with metric 2. Let's move on to metric 3. Okay guys, so that was the end of metric 2. Let's now move on to metric number 3. Also check out these nails. Ooh, okay. Anyway, so the third metric is letters of recommendation. So I think we all know this. When you're applying to some sort of academic program, you need other people to vouch for you, right? So that could be your class teacher, a subject teacher, or a mentor. And the admissions committees like really pay attention to these letters, because when they're submitted, especially on Common App, they tend to be anonymous, right? Not all teachers will let you see these letters before they submit them, and so they're going to be really honest. And if your teacher is honest and giving you good reviews, and they're like, this is someone who's hardworking, who's going to make the most of their education, etc., then you're going to be in good books. So make sure that your letters of recommendation really do stand out. And how do you do this, right? How do you get people to write good letters of recommendation? You simply stand out in your extracurricular activities and in your academics. If you're requesting your math teacher to submit a letter of recommendation for you, and you're president of the math club, you do really well in math, I mean, it's a given, and you have like a good working relationship with the teacher, then you'll definitely get a letter of recommendation that will help you stand out. So keep that in mind. All right, so we're done with metric number 3. We're gonna move on to metric number 4. Metric number 4 is intellectual curiosity. So you're probably now wondering, how is this different from the first metric that I mentioned, which was, about your grades, your GPA, what courses you're taking? Well, it's just showing the admissions committee that you're doing a little bit extra intellectually. So one of the things that can help you with this is having a reading culture. I remember when I was applying to college, Columbia in New York asked me to list the books I've read in the past, and well, thank God that in camp, and I'll talk about what I mean by camp later because I don't want this video to be too long, but at least like during camp they really encouraged us to read a lot of books, and generally I was a reader when I was in high school. So number 1, having a good reading habit. Number 2, listening to podcasts, etc., because they might ask you about these things in your application. And the third thing is, if you can get any sort of internship, fellowship, research opportunity that shows that you're intellectually curious about a certain field, then that is going to help you stand out, and you'll definitely get a 5 out of 5 in the intellectual curiosity section or metric. Yeah. All right, we're done with that. Moving on to metric number 5. Okay guys, thank you for holding on. I know this is a lot of information, but we're now moving on to metric number 5, and this metric is called a quirky combination. So what does that mean? Right, imagine you are an admissions officer and you're reading an application, and then you realize that the student who's applying is going to be a computer science student, but is also a ballet dancer or a violinist, and has been doing that for several years. And that's what they call the quirky combination effect, right? So in the past, in the admissions process, they liked all-rounded students who are excellent in everything, but that's not very realistic. So these days, what they look for, and excuse the barking in the background, that's Robbie. If you follow me on Instagram, you're very familiar with Robbie, my very chaotic puppy. But anyway, so the point is, if you can, and if this is truly aligned with who you are, try and bring out 2 different sides of you. And the most popular is combining an art with a science, and that's why I gave the example of computer science and being a violinist. So that's a really cool way of standing out, because it means that you're going to be doing very interesting and diverse things on campus when you do join. All right, that's it for metric number 5. We are finally at the very last metric, and this one again doesn't really apply to us just because of the resources that we have within the 844. All right guys, thank you so much for sticking around for the very last metric, and that is athletic ability. So just like the first metric that I discussed, this one doesn't really apply to the 844 or CBC system, but could apply to the international programs in Kenya or Africa, if you will. And let me explain why. So typically, when the admissions committee is trying to select members of its new class, they're thinking about who these individuals are going to be, and they would very much like to have people who are top athletes within their team. Say for example for hockey, ice hockey. Okay, and let me just explain why. So typically when the admissions committee members are looking for people to join the class, they're thinking of, having basically acquiring top athletes who are going to be members of their teams, their athletic teams. So think about soccer, ice hockey, swimming teams, you name it. These universities typically hold really big athletic events, and they usually have that in mind when they're selecting students. So if you're an applicant and say you've been doing cross country for a really long time, or you're a competitive swimmer, this is something you definitely want to highlight in your application, so that they'll be like, oh, if this person joins our school, they would be a good fit for our whatever team. So alright guys, thank you so much for joining me for this YouTube video. I hope you really enjoyed it and found it informative. So I'm going to keep posting videos and updating you guys on what's happening within the admission scene. And as some of you know, I run Hadithi Consulting, which is an educational consulting company. Definitely reach out to us on our website and follow me on Instagram at Hadithi_za_Imani. I'll talk about where I got that name in a separate video. And finally, good luck to everybody who's applying this year. I'm really wishing you guys the best, and if you need my help, again, just comment below, email me, website link, Instagram DM me, whatever you need to do to get in touch with me or my team. All right, thanks so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.